With the upcoming April release of Jedi Survivor and the recent release of its connected novel, Jedi Battle Scars, I figured this was the perfect time to recap the entire story of Cal Kestis and the crew of the Stinger Mantis. As a warning, this video contains spoilers for the following: Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Dark Temple, Jedi Battle Scars, as well as some plot lines from the Clone Wars animated series. I also want to throw in there that the novel doesn't really have a whole lot of visual content, being a book, so I'll do my best to match the visuals to what's happening in the story. With that out of the way, please enjoy the video. Our story begins thousands of years prior to the fall of the Republic, with an ancient species known as the Zeffo. The Zeffo was a strange lizard-like species, and seemingly one of the earliest to discover and use what they called the Life Wind, which would later be called the Force. They originated on a planet of the same name where they worshipped their leaders known as the Sages. These Sages were Zeffo that had the ability to wield the Force, which would allow them to lead their species into discovering countless technologies far surpassing those of the future republics. According to legends, they were able to create warp gates, which allowed a ship to achieve light speed while within a planet's gravity field, something impossible to the societies of the future. There were three sages that made a notable impact on Zeffo society, with those being Elrim, Mictrul, and Kujit. Elram and Mictrul were both peaceful sages and were buried on Zeffo, having served prior to the species leaving the planet. As the Zeffo expanded across the galaxy and constructed countless structures and artifacts, they were slowly exposed to the dark side of the Force, which they had no experience with. Several hundred years after the two peaceful sages, the next sage, Kujit, rose to power. He ordered the destructions of countless astriums, objects that the species worshipped, while promising his followers power over all. He ruled from Dathomir, and staged a massive massacre against the rebels to his rule, dropping them to the fiery pits below his sanctum. When he perished, he was buried with one of the final astriums in existence, within the walls of the palace he slaughtered thousands in. As the remaining Zeffo faced extinction, they fled the galaxy, hoping to find peace beyond its borders, leaving only their ruins as proof they had ever existed. Our story continues thousands of years later, approximately 40 years before the Battle of Yavin, on the planet Namil. Jedi Master Eno Cordova and his Padawan Cere Junda are negotiating a peace treaty between a sect of Dubei monks and a local Trandoshan warlord named Versk. As tempers flare between the groups, Cere uses the Force to push back both sides, which her master promptly apologizes for. Cordova tells his Padawan to try and get the Trandoshan side of the story, while he does the same with the monks. Cere's prejudice towards the Trandoshans cause her to attack one, trying to calm the group down, angering them further. Despite her attempts to remain calm, she comes to blows with the group, incapacitating them easily. Her master emerges from the tent and tells her that the monks were in the wrong. They had stolen credits from the warlord when they tried to purchase illegal weapons from them. Cere apologizes and retreats to the ship before the master and apprentice return to the temple. Cere defends her actions before the Jedi Council, saying she was provoked. They agree that the situation was complicated and warn against such actions in the future. They inform them that their next mission has already been decided, on the planet Ontotho, a recent addition to the Republic. An excavation project by the Daw Corporation recently unearthed the Temple of Unknown Origin, and the Council wishes to use Cordova's knowledge of ancient history to learn its past. 3 days later, they arrive at the Ontotho spaceport and are greeted by Dilanto Daw, the founder of the corporation. He brings them to a heavily armored vehicle, to the Jedi's confusion. He explains that the temple is located in a region called Phylar, which is the only region not yet unified with the rest of the planet. They have no permission to study the temple, but are in talks to gain access currently. While aboard the transport deep in the forest of Phylar, they are hit by an ambush, which Cere gets out to confront. Her master follows her into the forest, but the strange red fog seems to cloud their connection to the Force. They are separated briefly, with Cere finding the body of someone as she hears whispers in the trees. Returning to her master, the transport explodes, seemingly killing Cordova and everyone else inside. As the only survivor, Cere attempts to recover, but is knocked out from behind. She awakens in a cage with a droid telling her to remain calm. She uses the Force to grab her lightsaber and cut her way free, but is stopped at gunpoint. Holding the leader hostage, she confronts them for attacking and taking her hostage, but they deny it. The leader, named Nerali, says that the door to her cell hasn't even been locked, and it's all just a misunderstanding, before bringing her out into the city of Flylar. Nerali says that the attack was likely a false flag by the corporations to allow them to retaliate, and that their sources say that everyone else, including her master, died in the attack. She brings Seer to the temple they were looking for, where not even they know who constructed it, but they only know that they must protect it. Nerali shows Seer proof that the Daw Corporation were behind the attack, and Seer decides to return to Antotho City to contact the Jedi Council. Entering the city with her former droid captor and Thrilo, they decide to enter the Parliament building to gain data to prove the corporation was behind the attack. Entering and sneaking through a vent, she sees Dilanto appealing to the Council of Unified Antotho, saying that to honor the men fallen, he wishes to have full support of the government to finish his exploration. Seer attempts to expose his false flag, but the Council discredits her and tells security to take her into custody. Dilanto admits that he had something to do with the attack privately, before Seer is forced to defend herself from the droids. She escapes outside and is forced into a brawl with security in the street, sending in Thrilo to warn Nerali of the incoming attack while she buys time. About a day later, the Felarians are preparing for the upcoming battle, but some still doubt the attack as the information for it came from an outsider. Of course, Seer manages to return to the city, saying that they will need all the assistance they can. As the Antotho security forces approach Phylar, Seer and a squad ambush them, driving them back, with Seer making sure that lethal force isn't used. Returning to the town victorious, a local named Fess doubts that they can withstand the true might of the Antothians, but Seer and Nerali defend their actions until an explosion rings through the village. The security droids track the recovered salvage from the previous battle and are here to wipe the village. Managing to defend with no casualties, Seer decides to try and end the war with a preemptive strike on the Antothians' leadership. She brings the strongest Felarian warriors with her, where they find Chairman Daw receiving news of the failed attacks. They set a fire as a distraction and take out the remaining men around the camp. Seer directly attacks Daw, but he manages to call security droids and escape to another room. In that room, she finds her master, who she thought was dead as well. Cordova admits that Dilanto saved him, but kept it a secret, and even allowed him to contact the Jedi Council, but he informed them that the Felari were terrorists. Seer manages to tell him that she is with the Felari, much to her master's surprise. 2 days later, after convincing both sides, they agree to a peace meeting on the border. Tempers flare between the two leaders, but Cordova separates the two just as Seer did on the meal. They agree for 2 days of peace so that both sides can wait until another Jedi arrives to solve the situation. Cordova tells Seer that he believes something is going on behind the scenes of Phylar, so they will spend as much time investigating the temple until the treaty is inevitably broken. Directly according to his own treaty, nobody is to enter the temple for its duration, so Seer waits by the entrance to ensure nobody enters, while Cordova studies what's inside. Cordova manages to enter without being noticed, and begins studying the inscriptions, the likes of which he has never seen before. He's so engrossed in his studying that he accidentally triggers several booby traps, which he easily defends from. His actions have also awoken a guardian of some sort, but it doesn't attack. Seer follows him from a distance and spots several Antotho guards hunting the Jedi. Seer ambushes them before being captured, but the guardian from before kills the guards with his massive fists and the strange energy lasers. Seer manages to destroy it, and the only guard remaining flees down a hallway. Seer follows, and soon both are trapped, and the guard throws a poison gas grenade, which they realize will kill both of them. Seer struggles to open the door, but the guard refuses to help, instead radioing Daw to send everything they have before perishing to the gas. Seer nearly has the same fate, but her master opens the door, saving her. Her master sends her out of the temple to defend, while he remains inside to record as much data as he can. Dilanto, using his men's death as a loophole, begins his attack on Phylar, creating a massive battlefield with deaths on both sides. Seer says that if she can get to Daw, she could end it, but Nerali has another idea. She says there's something in the temple that could help their situation, but Fess refuses to let her elaborate. Seer sends her off, hoping whatever she has in mind can end the battle, and Nerali enters the temple. Inside, she stuns Cordova, saying that she can no longer let anything get in their way. Back at the battle, Seer has decided Nerali is taking too long, and has begun a single-handed charge to the command center, bypassing most of the battle. She cuts her way through the ceiling, and manages to convince Dilanto to a ceasefire, saying that she will do her best to gain him access to the Jedi archives, appealing to his historian background. He says that based on the investigation of the original attack, it was indirectly caused by his company, but it was truly caused by a local Filari who had a feud to settle, so they ambushed them in hopes of a war. Exiting the vehicle, they call the ceasefire, but a strange blaster shot tears through Daw's chest, killing him instantly. The Filari have used the ceasefire to redouble their attack, using strange blasters to shred through the Ontothians. When Seer tries to stop them, saying the ceasefire has been called, they fire at her without saying a word. Seer orders the security forces to retreat, and at that moment, the Jedi Council arrives. Seer gives a brief explanation of the past few days as they readied themselves for the attack. They decide that Master Odu will join Seer finding her master, while Master Windu will remain here and hold off the Filarians. Entering the temple, they find Cordova, but Neuralis traps them in a strange energy bubble, saying they walked directly into her trap. She says that her end goal is to overthrow the Ontothian government, then leave the Republic for good, remaining neutral. Seer realizes that the energy spheres are what Daw was after, and Neurali explains that this power is what supercharged their blasters earlier. She orders N3 to kill them, and he drops a gas grenade inside the sphere. They leave and find Fess, who has supercharged their cannons with the spheres, and they begin shooting down the approaching Republic ships. The Republic responds by firing massive turbo lasers, which Fess realizes if a sphere is hit would detonate the entire temple, but Neurali informs him to keep firing. Back within the temple, Cordova uses the Guardians to attack the sphere, hoping to overload and free themselves. Once the sphere is overloaded, they ready themselves to attack the Guardians, but a Republic turbo laser blasts past them and hits a sphere, igniting it. As the temple ignites, the three Jedi run outside, but the ensuing explosion knocks Master Odu into a canyon, killing him. A massive rock flies at the Filarians, but the two remaining Jedi save them, much to their confusion. They signal a Republic transport and tell Neurali to rally her people so they can evacuate. When everybody is aboard the ship, they take off, but notice Neurali and several other Filarian leaders stayed behind, as the region collapses. 2 days later, at the Jedi Temple, the Council goes over the mission with Seer, before knighting her into a Jedi Knight, a true member of the Order. They say that if Neurali and her loyalists did survive, they will likely find nothing in the destroyed region, as it was completely wiped from the face of the planet. Meeting with her former master in the archives, she thanks him for all the time he has dedicated towards her, before asking him his future plans. He says that he wishes to continue to study the species sown in the ruins, and will continue to assist her as her mentor in the future. Following the events on Ontotho, Cordova spends his days researching the Zeffo, following the artifacts from the temple to an unknown planet called Bogano. It's here where he discovered the Zeffo homeworld, following the path left by 3 Zeffo sages across the galaxy. Seer followed the path of a typical Jedi, gaining a young Padawan named Trilla, whose fate will be revealed later. At the same time, a youngling named Cal Kestis was brought to the temple and trained as a Padawan. At an early age, it was discovered he possessed the ability of psychometry, which allowed him to sense the history of objects when touching them using the Force. Many masters noticed that Cal rarely struggled with trainings, but was ill-suited to deal with any failure. This resulted in him being assigned to Jaro Tapal, a Lasat Jedi whose disciplined doctrine shaped Cal into the promising prospect of a future Jedi. Together, Tapal and Cal were given control of the 13th Clone Battalion, known as the Iron Battalion, and were based out of a Venator Star Destroyer called the Albedo Brave. Following a successful campaign on Braca, they are awaiting new deployment orders to assist Master Ki Adi Mundi in the 4th Battle of Megito. To pass the time, Cal spent the days talking and hanging with the troops, until his master called him in for training. Completing the course set, he found his master talking with the battalion's commander, and turned to tell Cal their orders for Megito had finally arrived. While the two spoke, Emperor Palpatine executed Order 66, branding all Jedi traitors to the Republic. Through the Force, Tapal felt countless Jedi perish, before managing to save himself by killing the commander. Tapal told his Padawan that the clones had betrayed them for reasons unknown, and tells Cal to escape through the maintenance system. Running through the halls, Cal manages to escape the troopers and makes it to the service access. Climbing onto a turbolift, he blocks a shot from a trooper, but it knocks his lightsaber over the edge. His master saves him and tells him to hurry and opens the gates for him. Arriving at the pods, Tapal defends Cal as he opens the hatch, but is hit several times, knocking him into the pod. Cal's emotions allow him to force stasis the attacking clones and eject the pod. As the pod ejects, Tarpal tells Cal to trust no one but the Force, and wait for the Council's orders, before he perishes. As Cal plummets towards Braca, scared and alone, the Brave explodes as T'Pol had overloaded the engines before they left. Over the next 6 years, Cal went into hiding to escape the Jedi Purge, as the Empire expanded its reign across the galaxy, including to Braca. His connection to the Force was damaged by his trauma from the Purge and the lack of usage over the years in hiding. He secretly kept his master's damaged lightsaber, effectively replacing the one he lost on the Brave. He eventually joined the Scrappers Guild, where he became friends with an Abanito named Prauf, who had been scrapping and engineering since the early Republic. On a day that seemed like any other, Cal and Prauf were scrapping on a Venator-class warship until their manager droid calls for them. There's been a malfunction with a set of clamps on line 10A, and they need workers to repair it. Their pay will be doubled for their entire shift, and they take the job. They head through the ship, but take a moment to watch a separatist Lucrehulk battleship enter orbit, which Prauf remarks will bring fat paychecks to everyone. Continuing to the clamps, they repair them before reuniting atop one of the wings. They find an old Jedi starfighter, which Prauf mentions that the finders feel alone would allow Cal to escape the soggy rock. As Cal reminisces about his past, he reminds Prauf to watch his words, as he said that not all Jedi should be traitors. As they talk, a cable line snaps, sending them both tumbling down to the massive Sarlacc pit below. Cal manages to get snagged on some cables, but Prauf can't seem to support his weight in the rain. As a probe droid watches on, Prauf drops like a rock, but Cal manages to use the Force to guide him onto a nearby skiff. They manage to land safely, and he checks that Prauf is okay. He seems perfectly fine, but he questions Cal about the Force, which he recognizes from old stories. Cal tells him to forget about what he just saw, and Prauf tells him not to worry. At the end of their shift on the train ride home, Prauf thanks Cal for what he did, and offers him help getting off planet. Cal says that once he gets his bag, he's going to contact an old friend called Tabbers on Nar Shaddaa before closing his eyes to rest for the day. He opens his eyes to find Prauf gone, walking through the train cars. Following him, he somehow finds himself back aboard the Albedo Brave, with the blast doors closing in on him. A vision of his master appears and tells him to once again trust only in the Force, before slamming him to the ground. Awakening to the train stopping, they are forced off the train by a pair of stormtroopers, which Prauf dismisses as a normal contraband inspection. This is soon proven false when Cal comes face to face with a purge trooper, and 2 Imperial ships land close by. 2 women emerge and line everyone up before saying they are hunting for Jedi, and if he doesn't turn himself in, everyone will be executed. Prauf steps forward to protect Cal, and begins reminiscing of how the Republic was better than the Empire in every way that mattered, and now everyone is just expendable to them. Agreeing, the second sister stabs through him, which Cal reacts to by swinging his hidden lightsaber at her, but it's easily blocked by her second blade. The ninth sister grabs him and drops him onto a train below. Fighting his way through the stormtroopers on board the train, he works his way to the front to try and control it. An Imperial ship strafes the train, shooting out a coupling and destroying the part he's on. Climbing back to the top, the ship's about to gun him down when he is shot down by another ship. The door opens and someone tells him to keep moving forward, where they will pick him up when they can, before being chased off by the Inquisitor ship. Moving forward, the train is bombed once again by the Inquisitors, allowing Cal to jump onto the rescuer's ship, but is knocked off by blaster fire. Tumbling to a landing pad below, the second sister follows and sees that he has had some training with a lightsaber, and mocks him, asking what Jedi gave their life so he could live. As the 2 cross blades, the rescuers arrive and blast them, allowing him a window to escape. Boarding the ship, the Inquisitor pursues relentlessly as they take off. The sister uses the Force to grab the controls, but they manage to break free before jumping to lightspeed. Cal thanks the 2 for their help, and they introduce themselves as Cere Junda and their captain, Grease. Suspicious, Cal briefly introduces himself before asking why they helped him. Apparently, they track the Inquisitors to Braca, and Cere tells them that they are focused on something bigger than just surviving. They want to rebuild the Jedi Order. Cere confirms that it's just the 3 of them on the mission, and tells Grease to set course for Bogano, before telling Cal to get some rest, as he's safe now. Waking up after a short nap, he finds a Halleck set and uses his psychometry to hear its past, playing the song. Cere remarks that she wrote the song years ago and recognizes his abilities. Cal admits to Seer that his connection to the Force was damaged with the trauma of the Purge, but she comforts him, saying that he will learn to move past it. She admits that she was a Jedi once too, but cut herself off from the Force due to the Purge. Arriving at their location, Seer tells Cal that this planet was discovered by a Jedi before the Purge, and is not on any maps, Imperial or not. She tells him to enter a nearby vault which she believes holds the key to rebuilding the Order, but can only be opened by somebody strong in the Force. Before he sets off, she tells him to keep an eye out for somebody living there who could help them on their journey, which Cal understands to mean a Jedi. Sitting down to meditate to catch up with the hectic past few days, he is met by a small droid calling itself BD-1. Cal mentions the Jedi he's looking for, and the droid seems to know who he is and offers to bring him. Following the droid to a workshop, he watches as it defends a small bogling from a bog rat, but gets its leg damaged in the attack. Cal rescues the droid and repairs its leg to a degree, gaining its trust to a point where it rides on his shoulder from this point on. Following the droid to a small cavern, Cal begins to connect with the Force again, allowing him to wall run as he recalls his days training with his master. Continuing to follow the droid's directions, they arrive at the door, and Cal is able to use the Force to open the vault. Entering the chamber within, BD-1 rushes to the middle and displays a hologram of a Jedi Master. The recording introduces itself as Eno Cordova and congratulates Cal for entering the vault and discovering the first of many recordings encrypted on the droid. He continues on, saying that they stand in a structure created by a lost race known as the Zeffo. Meditating here, he was granted a vision of the destruction of the Jedi Order, so he placed a holocron containing a list of Force-sensitive children who have the potential to become Jedi. He can only trust the holocron to those who have traveled his path and understand the Force as the Zeffo once did. He says that Cal must find the tombs of the 3 Zeffo sages, and the recordings of BD-1 will guide him on his journey. He says that the first tomb is on the Zeffo homeworld, where Cal will find peace in the center of the storm, before wishing him good luck. Realizing that BD was the person he was supposed to meet, he connects with the droid about how they were both alone for many years, and asks that he accompany him on his journey. The droid agrees and they leave the vault and head back to the ship. On the journey back, they pass a set of inscriptions on the wall, prompting BD to display another recording of Cordova. Reading the inscription, the Old Master says that the Zeffo seem to have some interest in Dathomir, but doesn't elaborate further, just calling it strange. Finally returning to the ship, Cal introduces BD-1 to the rest of the crew, and tells them what he found in the vault. Seer tells Cal that Cordova was her Old Master, and explains what a holocron is to Grease. She pulls out the holocron of Obi-Wan Kenobi informing the Jedi of the fall of the Republic, before elaborating that it contains information only accessible to Jedi. The crew confirms one last time that they are all ready for this mission before plotting a course to Zeffo. Exiting hyperspace into Zeffo's orbit, they notice a massive storm with an eye that seems to have a settlement within it. Remembering Cordova's Eye of the Storm phrase, they fly their way into the settlement, with Grease's piloting skills managing a decently smooth landing through the rough storm. Cal sets out to search for traces of Cordova, while Seer operates the comms from inside the ship. Discovering a high Imperial presence, they realize that they have to find the tomb fast, as it's likely the imps are there looking for something similar. Traveling through the ruins of the village, Cal discovers plans for Project Auger. Based on recordings found around Zeffo, Project Auger was exactly what Seer and Cal feared. The Empire, on order of the Emperor, were searching for Zeffo artifacts. By using Imperial Code 94364, the troopers evicted the residents and brought in heavy machinery to strip mine the planet. The electromagnetic winds rendered much of the equipment useless, with a former commander recommending abandonment of the project, as many troopers were also dying due to aggressive and dangerous wildlife. The project remained stagnant until Officer Crane took charge, netting them several artifacts in exchange for many workers. Due to Crane's recklessness and lack of safety, many workers died due to avoidable cave-ins or accidents. This continued until Crane herself perished in a cave-in, while hiding an artifact she believed would bring her the favor of the Emperor. With her death, the project was shut down, leaving only a small garrison to protect the Imperial infrastructure. Continuing through the remains of Project Auger, Cal eventually comes across a localized storm that seems to call to him through the Force. Traversing through it, Cal arrives at a strange ruin that acts as an elevator when he enters. Based on a recording from Cordova, this is the tomb of Elrim, one of the 3 sages and the earliest Zeffo ruin he ever found. Exploring the tomb, Cal came across several metal guardians which he manages to defeat barely. Coming across a massive metal door, Cal uses the Force to connect with the area around him to begin to mend his connection with the Force, allowing him to force push the door open. Inside, he finds the glass tomb of Sage Elram before BD plays another recording of the late Jedi. Cordova notes that the walls of the room distinctly resemble a Kashyyyk rocher tree. Believing that the Zeffo had contact with the Wookiees, Cordova believes that Chief Tarful will know about it. Escaping the tomb by activating the elevator with the Force, Cal returns to the surface to find dozens of stormtroopers awaiting him, and realizes he may have just opened the way for the Imperials to enter the tomb. Escaping the battalion, he returns to the Mantis and manages to save it from an AT-ST walker before entering the cabin. Inside, he tells them of their next destination being Kashyyyk. But Grease has some doubts about that. He explains that Kashyyyk is currently under heavy attack by the Empire, but Cal brushes it off and tells him to set course anyway. Cal asks Seer why she stopped using the Force, and after some thinking, she tells him. During the Purge, Seer and her Padawan Trilla took several younglings and were hiding before being discovered by the Empire. Seer attempted to draw them away from the younglings, but she was captured and believes the others were killed. She was tortured for information about Cordova, but managed to escape in a prison riot. She says that the torture almost broke her, and she hasn't been the same ever since, as the death of her Padawan hit her hard. She says that those who died will not have died in vain, and they continue their course to Kashyyyk. Exiting hyperspace into Kashyyyk's orbit, they see several Imperial I-class Star Destroyers, but manage to slip by undetected using stolen codes, and they seem to be distracted with something on the surface. Entering the atmosphere, they glide above the treetops and see several refineries as they approach the World Tree. Suddenly, a TIE fighter, chased by a Wookiee gunship, whips by as they receive transmissions of insurgents ambushing an Imperial convoy. Hearing that AT-AT walkers are approaching, Cal tells Grease to get him close enough to swim to one so he can hijack it and support the rebels. Jumping into the water near a walker, Cal and BD manage to hijack the walker and take control. They manage to destroy the second walker by surprise, then begin mowing down stormtroopers defending the beachhead the rebels are assaulting. An armored man asks if they could provide close support for their assault on the landing pad nearby, which they agree. Despite the heavy support, they are brought down by a damaged cargo shuttle which crashes into them, sending the walker careening to the ground. Emerging from the burning carcass, Cal and BD are greeted by the armor man once again, who introduces himself as Saw Gerrera. Cal asks Saw about Tarful, but he says that he's nearly impossible to find, as he stays hidden in the Shadowlands. When Cal insists, saying it's Jedi business, Saw says their next target is a nearby refinery, which runs on Wookiee slave labor. He's heard that several of the captives there fought with Tarful and may be able to connect them if Cal helps with the assault. The young Jedi agrees, and Saw tells him that he will have his men ready and to meet him on the ridge ahead when he's ready to start the assault. Meeting with the partisans on the ridgeline, Saw tells Cal that the refinery turns tree sap into a powerful explosive, and only does so by doubling as a brutal Wookiee prison camp. They realize that the Empire is spread too thin to properly defend. The rebels plan to act as a distraction and attract the Imperials outside, while Cal sneaks in and frees the Wookiees. Once the prisoners are free, they will pinch or attack the troops and claim the refinery for themselves. As the rebels set off to directly attack the structure, Cal heads to a side passage and clears his way into the building. Fighting his way through the refinery, Cal eventually finds the lockup and sets about freeing the Wookiees, but is stopped by a KX series security droid, but manages to slice it apart quickly. Popping the cages open, the Wookiees reunite and thank Cal before meeting with the rebels. While they tend to the Wookiees, Cal heads to the roof to secure the landing pad and reinforces the partisans there before they manage to completely secure the refinery. The rebels gather around Saw, who gives a speech thanking them for their service, and thanking Cal for the assistance, before declaring that Kashyyyk is not yet lost. Saw offers Cal a spot in his partisan forces, but Cal declines, saying that he has his own mission. In turn, Saw introduces him to Marian Choisik, a Wookiee who fought along Tarful before being captured, and his translator. They say that once they manage to contact the chieftain, they will contact Cal, but it may take a while to find them. Returning to the Mantis, Seer says that Project Auger has been reactivated on Zeffo, and they seem close to discovering another tomb. Making haste back to the planet, Cal travels to the newly excavated areas, and he can feel a similar calling to the previous tomb. Diving deeper, they are eventually met by the second sister, who's been awaiting them. She calls him by his name, and divulges that she knows his past, and that Cordova hid a holocron somewhere, but the exchange comes to blows. The second sister's battle experience allows her the upper hand, knocking Cal back, but BD manages to activate a door separating the two. From the other side, the Inquisitor taunts Cal, saying that he's not as good as Cere's last apprentice, because Cere is weak now. She says that Cere cracked under torture and exposed her Padawan to the Empire, saying they never would have found her if it wasn't for Cere. She reveals herself to be Trilla, Cere's former Padawan, and taunts Cal, saying that Cere fell to the dark side under torture, but he denies it. The two argue over Cere's past before Trilla walks away, asking what would Jaro Tapal think of him working with the traitor. With doubts about Cere swirling in his head, Cal is forced to explore the second tomb, which is overrun with Imperials. Battling his way through the magnet-powered tomb of Mictrol, he eventually finds himself facing off against a ship while on a hanging platform. Defending himself, the ship shoots out the supports, causing Cal to plummet to his eventual demise. As his lightsaber falls away, Cal recalls his training with Tapal and manages to use the Force to grab his lightsaber before landing safely. Managing to activate the temple with his new connection to the Force, BD-1 shows another recording of Cordova. In the inscriptions, he sees Mictrol at the Bogano vault with a strange key in his hand, which he believes allows a Force user the ability to perceive the secrets of the vault. He says it's strange that all the recordings of the Astrium keys were destroyed, but his next step is clear: to find one of these Astriums, if any still exist. On his journey back to the ship, Cal is ambushed by a bounty hunter, who manages to tie him up with an electric bola before knocking him out. Awakening in a strange cage, Cal realizes that both his lightsaber and BD-1 are missing, much to his concern. Managing to escape the cage, he explores his prison and comes across his friend locked up with a restraining bolt. Removing it, the two of them manage to activate an elevator, heading them upwards. Arriving to the top, they enter an arena where they are greeted with a giant hologram of an Umbaran, calling himself Sork Tormo. He explains that he runs the Haxian Brood, a criminal syndicate, and kidnapped Cal to get Grease to pay off his massive gambling debt. Using various vicious animals, Cal is forced into a gladiatorial style of combat for the entertainment of the syndicate's membership. After several battles, the Stinger Mantis arrives and manages to extract Cal from the arena, escaping the asteroid prison. Safe aboard the ship, Grease apologizes for his problems harming Cal, but Cal tells him that he's fine. He tells Cere that the Empire knows of the holocron, and that he knows that Trilla is the second sister. She defends her actions to Cal, but their conversation is interrupted by a message from Kashyyyk. Mari tells Cal that Tarful has agreed to meeting him and wishes to do so as soon as possible. At the same time, Saw was forced off-world by an Imperial counterattack, so some of the partisans have joined the Wookiees. Cere and Cal agree to put their conversation on hold until they return, and Cal heads off to rest. He is woken by Grease, who asks Cal to forgive Cere, saying that they're all in this battle together. He reiterates his apology about the deal with the Haxians, and says that everybody makes mistakes. He tells Cal that before meeting them, the only thing that mattered was a good hand in the card game, but he has since gained new purpose thanks to them. Cal agrees to think about it as they enter Kashyyyk's orbit once again. Passing through the refinery into the Shadowlands, Cal is able to arrive at the meeting location with no problems. Finding Mari, she introduces him to Tarful and translates for him. Cal asks the chief about Cordova and where he may have found something, which Tarful tells him that he found something related to the Zeffo at the top of the World Tree. He gives Cal a rebreather and gives Cal permission to climb the sacred tree. During the journey, Cal avoids several carnivorous plants before coming across the ruins of a Wookiee village. Suddenly, the Nightsisters ship appears with the Inquisitor on the landing ramp. She calls him an idiot for returning, before firing on him with the ship. As Cal slides through the roots of the tree, the Inquisitor remains in hot pursuit. As the ship lines up for the killing strafe, a massive Shio bird flies overhead and damages the ship, allowing Cal to escape. Climbing the tree once again, he avoids the gaze of the massive bird, not knowing if it's friend or foe, until he finds it clearly injured, lying in its nest. He approaches, calling himself a friend, and removes a piece of the Nightsisters ship before healing it. Grateful, the massive creature offers its back to Cal, and grants him a peaceful ride to the top of the tree. At its peak, Cal finds a lightsaber workstation, presumably left by Cordova, and repairs his master's blade, allowing the second blade to be ignited. Nearby, BD-1 plays another hologram of Cordova. He managed to find an astrium atop the tree, which he says will allow him to no longer struggle to get the astrium he found on Dathomir. Cal realizes that this means there's still the other astrium on the Forsaken Planet in Kujit's tomb. Returning to the bird for a ride to the surface, they are ambushed again by the Nightsisters ship, spooking the bird as the Inquisitor jumps down to Cal, ready for a fight. The two duel, with Cal surprising her with his abilities since Braca, forcing her to ignite her second blade. After another short exchange, Cal cuts off her hand, which she seems to shrug off. She tries to catch him with a surprise attack, but he is able to overcome her assault, slicing her back and pushing her from the tree, presumably killing her. Realizing he just beat an Inquisitor, the bird returns and grants him passage back to the surface as he comes to grips with his newfound confidence. Returning to the ship just as Grease finishes lunch, he tells them that he managed to defeat the Ninth Sister, much to their surprise. As the captain loads his steak with an unholy amount of salt, Ciri tries to explain what she went through during her time at the Empire. Cal forgives her to a degree, saying that it's impressive that she went through all the torture and didn't fall into the darkness. Finishing their food, they set course to Dathomir. Arriving on the planet, Cere and Grease remind him to be extremely careful, even more so than he has in the past. Exiting the ship, Cal encounters the vicious fauna of Dathomir before stumbling across a Zeffo inscription. As BD-1 scans it, a mysterious figure appears in a flash of green. Cal recognizes her as a Night Sister, but she tells him to leave immediately. When he doesn't listen, she empowers two Night Brothers to attack him before disappearing. Defeating the Night Brothers, he continues through the strange ruins, fending off other brothers on the path before he is called out to by a mysterious robed figure. The Wanderer remarks on Cal's lightsaber, but calls himself just a traveler who's studying a variety of things. When asked about the Night Sister, he says that she was only a child when her family was wiped out, causing her to be suspicious of outsiders. Cal asks about the ruins ahead, which the traveler tells Cal that the Night Sister and her kin were seduced by its power, and then recommends that Cal avoid them, lest he suffer the same fate. Leaving the stranger, Cal approaches the temple, but a Night Brother smashes the platform, sending him plummeting to the swamps below. Climbing his way up the root-like structures, Cal is met by the Night Sister once again, saying he will go no further. She says that Jedis are thieves and liars, but promises not to touch Cal. She uses her strange magics to resurrect the dead Night Sisters, and watches them attack Cal before disappearing. I suppose now would be an appropriate time to elaborate on the fate of Merrin's family, the other Night Sisters. Known as the Witches of Dathomir, they were powerful in their own right in terms of the Force, using it as a tool for deceit and trickery. Merrin's clan was led by Mother Talzin, one of the most powerful witches of her time. The fall began in the year 50 BBY, when Talzin was forced to give up possession of a child known as Asajj Ventress to a criminal guild in exchange for protection against them. Ventress would go on to be rescued by a Jedi, and was raised as one until her master, Kyn Narek, was killed by the same pirates he rescued her from. She fell to the dark side and avenged her master, but was too far gone to return to the light. She was picked up by the former Jedi turned Sith known as Count Dooku, and was raised to be his assassin and commander. During the Clone Wars, she was a high priority target for the Republic, clashing with several Jedi, most notable being Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, who she encountered several times. Eventually, Palpatine, Dooku's master, ordered Dooku to kill her as she had begun to rival her master's power, but his attempt failed. In an act of desperation, Ventress returned to her home and the coven that had raised her, and was accepted back with open arms. Together, her new family orchestrated a hit on Count Dooku, using the modified Night Brother Savage Opress. The attempt failed as Opress betrayed them, but Palpatine saw how powerful the witches truly were, and ordered them destroyed. Count Dooku sent the robotic warlord General Grievous alongside a battalion of droids to Dathomir, and set siege to their fortress. Despite the sisters' best attempts, most of the coven was wiped out, with the survivors separated, not knowing there were any others. Mother Talzin and Ventress were among the few still left, but that's a story for another time. Merrin somehow survived alone, until she allied with a band of Night Brothers in the nearby village. But she always remembered the hulking machine, with his 4 lightsabers, and thinking him a Jedi, pledged her eventual revenge. Managing to defeat the undead, Cal continues his climb, even finding equipment on a dead Night Brother which allows him to escape the swamps and return to the surface. Approaching the temple once more, he finds the stranger gone and enters without opposition. Inside, he finds a massive doorway that blocks his attempts to open it, so he decides to meditate to think about his next step. During his meditation, he awakens in a shadowy area, with his master standing across from him, igniting his lightsaber. The two duel, with T'Pol criticizing Cal of his lack of discipline, angering Cal, and he drives his lightsaber into his master's chest. As he realizes his error, the spirit crushes his lightsaber before telling him he is no Jedi. Screaming, Cal comes to find his lightsaber crushed, kyber crystal destroyed, rendering it unusable until a new one can be found. Exiting the temple, the mysterious stranger approaches him, saying that he warned him. Asking who he truly is, the stranger disrobes to show countless scars and a pair of lightsabers. He calls himself Terran Malicos, a former Jedi who managed to escape the Purge by killing his troops, until he crashed here. Making the best of his situation, he took control of the Night Brothers by conquering the darkness of the planet. He says he can teach Cal to control the power of the darkness if only he joins his family. Nightsister Merrin appears and asks why he is not killing the Jedi, as he told her they orchestrated the attack on her sisters. She calls Malicos truly insane, before using the broken crystal ball to summon hundreds of undead Nightsisters. Malicos yells for Cal to flee, before taking his own advice. Cal sprints to the ship, and Grease, seeing the swarming zombies all over his ship, takes off immediately, escaping the planet. As Cal collapses holding his broken lightsaber, he recounts to Seer his experiences in the past, and how he could have saved his master. Watching him break down, Seer tells Cal what truly happened when she was imprisoned in the Empire. She says that when they brought Trilla into the room, and she realized she had become an Inquisitor directly due to her own actions, she snapped. She tapped into the dark side of the Force, killing everyone in the room except Trilla before escaping. She only managed to escape her self-pity when she heard of the holocron, giving her a spark of hope for the future. She elaborates that neither of them can change the past, but they must move on so they can shape the future. Their first step will be building a new lightsaber at the sacred Jedi planet of Ilum. Arriving on the snowy wasteland, she reminds Cal that he will be tested, just as she is, and gives him her own broken lightsaber to use as parts to build his new one. Leaving the ship, he travels through the snowstorm, following the same path he took as a youngling to the temple ahead. Within the caves, he feels a crystal calling to him from deeper in. Following the call, the ice under him shatters, separating him and BD as he's plunged into the icy water. Swimming through, he slowly loses consciousness before he sees a vision of him as a youngling, who pulls him from the water and guides him to the crystal. Crawling the last few feet, he manages to grab it from its perch, cradling it gently. It shatters in his hand and he crumples to the ground, thinking it's over. As BD approaches him, he hears Cordova's voice that failure is not the end. BD shows him the final hologram of Cordova. He watches as Cordova gives encouraging words to BD-1, encouraging Cal, before the Jedi encrypts all of his data, wiping the droid's memory. He says that only a trusted ally will unlock his memories before saying goodbye to his friend one last time. Inspired by Cordova's words and BD-1's bravery, Cal decides to take the chance of the crystals working. Using all the skills he has and his connection to the Force, he combines the two broken blades into a new one, breathing life into the crystals. Igniting it, he regains the hope in his mission and continues on. Heading through the caves once again, he stumbles across a large Imperial garrison, but his new blades allow him to slice through like butter. Regaining comms with Seer, she tells him that dozens of Imperials are on their way to him and to get back to the ship quickly. Using his newfound connection to the Force, he slaughters the troops until he returns to the ship. With Cal's newfound confidence, they set course once again to Dathomir, but at the same time, the Nightsister was across the galaxy in pursuit of something else. Since her last encounter with Cal in the tunnels below Zeffo, the Nightsister received information of a possible Jedi sighting on Ontotho. Flanked by her Purge troopers, they locate the field commander who's in the middle of a firefight. Their commander tells them that the planet has been pacified, except for a pocket of resistance in the region. He tells her of a trooper who saw the lightsaber, but the trooper died several days ago, and the commander dismisses it as nothing but a rumor. She tells the troops to cease fire so she can cross the no man's land with the Purge troopers, until they're confronted by someone holding the lightsaber. Trilla easily overpowers the supposed Jedi, who's actually an old and frail Nerali, disarming her. She attempts to quick draw a blaster, but is disarmed again, this time literally. She is forced into saying that she found the blade in the temple, but kills herself on Trilla's blade before she can divulge its location. Searching through the village for survivors who know of the temple, the Purge troopers gun down Fess, the last survivor of Phylar. The troopers find nothing, but Trilla uses the Force to uncover a set of stairs heading downwards. Inside, they find the remains of N3lo, who claims that the Jedi has gotten them all killed. Realizing the Jedi were here once in the past, but no longer, they find a datapad left behind by Cordova, detailing the location of Bogano. Recognizing the connection between Cere and Cordova, they head to the planet to lie in ambush for Cal to return. As the Mantis lands on Dathomir, Cal immediately returns to the entrance of Kujit's tomb and begins his meditation once again. Meeting his master for a second time, Cal says that in facing him, it will allow him to overcome his past and truly surpass his master's memory. The two cross blades once again until Cal extinguishes his own, standing perfectly still. He doesn't flinch as his master strikes at his head, saying that he will never forget his master's sacrifice. Content that his Padawan is ready for the path ahead, the doors open, allowing Cal to continue his journey. Entering the chamber ahead, he hears Merrin calling to him, saying he was unwise to return. He renounces Malicos from his order, and says that a lightsaber doesn't truly make you a Jedi, before handing his own to Merrin. She recounts the attack on her people by General Grievous, before returning the blade to Cal, agreeing to a truce against Malicos. Approaching the fallen Jedi, he is given another opportunity to join his family, but denies it, saying he just wants to restore the order. Malicos says that the Order fell long before the Purge, held back by their traditions and politics, a sentiment held by many Jedi before the fall. Turned down one last time, the former Jedi draws his twin red blades and says that Dathomir will be Cal's grave. The two dance a deadly dance of blades before Malicos attempts to crush Cal with a massive rock. Merrin saves him and tells Malicos he no longer has any place on this planet and to leave or perish. As the two work together, Merrin manages to restrain him with her magic, before pulling him underground, burying him alive. With their mutual enemy defeated, Cal explains his mission, the Empire, and the Fallen Order to Merrin, which she seems to connect with. She assists him in recovering the Astrium from Kujit's dead body, and the two celebrate privately. Despite being happy for Cal, she still realizes that she is the last of her people, and there will be no more. Cal offers her to join the crew, to put her past behind her, which she promptly accepts much to Cal's surprise. She says that as the last survivor of each of their groups, they must adapt, although the crew may take a bit of convincing. Returning to the ship with Merrin, Cere is overjoyed to see the Astrium, but Grease is slightly wary of the Nightsister. They accept her onto the ship, saying that she will have to gain their trust, but they trust Cal enough to accept her. During the lightspeed journey back to Bogano, the crew sit around the Astrium thinking of the future, when Merrin asks a question they hadn't thought of. Are they sure this is something they should truly find? She elaborates by saying that what will come of the children that they recruit if the Empire is constantly hunting them? Despite the question, the two Jedi are still adamant of their plan. They just need to keep them from the hands of the Empire, but a seed of doubt seems to have been planted in their minds. Before they can continue the conversation, the landing bells sound out, signaling their immediate landing. Touching down on the planet, Merrin walks out and remarks the difference in the energy and sights between her home and this simplistic planet. She continues their earlier conversation, asking if the young Force sensitives would really be in trouble until they found them. She asks Cal just to think about it as he returns to the vault. Entering for the final time, he drops the Astrium into its slot as the place comes to life. Noticing a mirrored wall calling to him, he approaches it before being given a vision. He comes face to face with one of the sages, who says that their hubris and pride corrupted them until they faced extinction. The sage's recording disappears before showing a very likely future. Cal watches a vision of himself, teaching younglings of the Force, as they call him Master Kestis. Moving through the visions, he sees dozens of the younglings being slaughtered by the Purge troopers, having been found by the Empire. He feels their fear as they are captured or killed, gunned down mercilessly. He sees himself kneeling before Trilla, who says that she may spare some of his Padawans if he surrenders. Suddenly, in an Imperial prison, he sees the remaining younglings in prison, as they are slowly tortured, just as Cere and Trilla were years ago. As everything goes black, he ignites his lightsaber only to find it crimson red, while he wears an Inquisitor's uniform. Returning to the mirror, Cal shatters it, fearful of what he just witnessed. Turning around, he sees the holocron floating and approaches it. Reaching, he's interrupted by Trilla igniting her blade. She says that this holocron will allow her to gain the Emperor's favor, before the two come to blows once again. Overcoming Trilla and kicking her to the ground, Cal grabs her lightsaber ready to finish the battle. His psychometry abilities activate due to the strong emotions and force within it. As Trilla remarks, "It's been through hell, She grabs the holocron and leaves, as Cal is forced to relive Order 66 through Trilla's eyes. It witnesses her powerful transition into a ruthless Inquisitor. Escaping the flashback, Cal realizes that the holocron is gone, and exits the cave to tell the crew what happened. Fighting his way through several stormtrooper squads, he returns to the ship to relay the bad news. Giving Cere Trilla's lightsaber, he apologizes for his past actions, saying that he could never understood what she went through before telling her what happened in the vault. She takes responsibility for Trilla's actions before saying that she knows where she is likely headed. The Inquisitors have a fortress, the same she escaped from years ago. Finally ready to face her past, she uses the Force once again, and knights Cal into a true Jedi Knight, telling them that they are both ready. Traveling to Fortress Inquisitoris on the ocean moon of Mustafar, the crew sees several destroyers and countless defenses that would render their usual tricks useless. Merrin says that she has a ritual that could hide the ship in every sense. Using her crystal ball once again, she manages to use her magics to completely cloak the ship, allowing them to remain safely in orbit. With everyone in the crew waiting for them, Cal and Cere make a game plan. Cal will head directly for the holocron, while Cere creates a distraction and sabotages the defenses so that the Mantis can extract them. Ejecting in 2 separate escape pods to the surface, Cal readies himself for the battles ahead. Landing in the ocean outside the fortress, Cal manages to find a blast door and enters, breaching the defensive perimeter. Cutting his way through the troops, he overloads the generators in the hallways, causing explosions throughout the fortress. Shattering the weakened glass, Cal swims to the maintenance system to the main central spire of the fortress. As he gets inside, Cere radios that she's nearby but sealed behind a blast door. Cal manages to open it and sees why Cere easily became a Jedi Master. She cuts down 3 Purge Troopers easily with a combo of blaster and blade attacks. Finished, she tells Cal that the holocron is likely in the interrogation chamber, the most secure location, and opens the way for Cal. Entering the chamber, he is ambushed by Trilla from above as the two face off for what will likely be the final time. Locking blades, Cal attempts to reason with her, but she taunts him with the holocron, saying that he will never make it out alive. Thrusting into her, Cal beats Trilla and recovers the holocron as Cere enters the room. Cere connects with her Padawan, apologizing for everything that she did, admitting that she failed her. Trilla seems to accept it and begins to accept the light side, but a menacing breathing is heard behind her. Darth Vader emerges and says that Trilla has failed him before striking her down in a single blow. Cere jumps at him to give Cal time to escape, but is easily flicked off the platform. Cal refuses to surrender and is instantly grabbed by the Force. As he manages to escape, Vader uses an impressive amount of force to impede Cal, but he manages to make it into a turbo lift and barely escape. Back in the upper chambers, Cal tries to find an escape route, but is surprised by Vader once again. Defending himself, BD-1 manages to shock Vader, allowing Cal to score a light blow, but is easily knocked away. Vader uses the Force to stab Cal with his own blade, but Cere manages to attack from behind, putting herself between the two of them. As Vader remarks that her hatred would have made her a great Inquisitor, she begins tapping into the dark side once again to try and crush him. Cal manages to convince her to stay on the light, and she creates a shield to defend from Vader's attacks, as Cal blows out the window next to them. With Vader occupied blocking the rush of water, Cal drags his master out of the window and into the ocean, where both of them begin to fade. The last thing they see is Merrin appear, swimming towards them before it all fades to black. Cal awakens back on the Mantis to Grease's face, who tells him that Cere is alright and that they did it. Cal rushes out of the room to see everyone as Merrin rushes in for a hug. Cal thanks her for the rescue before talking to Cere once again. They sit around looking at the holocron and activate it, looking at the list of the future Jedi Order. Recalling his vision on Bogano, Cal and the crew agree that their destinies should be trusted only to the Force before they destroy it, ensuring the safety for the kids on the list. With their mission complete, they ask the only question left.
So where to now?
The story of the Stinger Mantis continues several years later, where the crew has become something of a strike team, fighting against the Empire and their seemingly eternal nemesis, the Haxian Brood. After being hounded by a particular group of Haxians, they decide to assault and destroy one of their asteroid fortresses, similar to the one that Cal escaped from years ago. Cal enters the base from the void of space and manages to sabotage the security system, allowing the Mantis to land unnoticed. They regroup, and Cal, Seer, and Marin split up to place the charges to destroy the base, while Grease remains on the ship ready for a quick getaway, maintaining the roles they developed over the years. Sears becomes something of the main strategist and head of the operation, as well as the final line of defense with her skills as a Jedi. Grease is the pilot and engineer of the Stinger Mantis, while Cal is the main assault force. Marin has settled into something of a stealth and support role, assisting Cal using her magics to ensure he doesn't get surrounded as the two fight back to back. She has noticed that since leaving Dathomir, external magics such as summoning fire or reviving the dead has become harder, although teleporting and invisibility still seem to come easy. She seems to blame it on homesickness, as she has never left Dathomir for this extended amount of time. As the two main assault members are taken by surprise when they discover the Haxians meeting with a group of stormtroopers, something they've never seen before. The surprise quickly fades though as they are forced to fight as the previously set charges explode, shaking the base to pieces. Escaping the battle, Marin is met by a stormtrooper asking for help, saying she is a defector and she has a way that they could use to cause massive harm to the Empire, but she disappears in the chaos. Cal and Marin return to the ship, only to see Seer with the stormtrooper from earlier, and both make it to the ship. The trooper takes off her helmet to show that she is a Keshari, which is unusual for a stormtrooper. The Keshari introduces herself as Chelwinark Frethrin, but to call her Fret, and she was an Outer Rim analyst and stole the trooper's armor to meet with the crew. She says that she was taken from a young age by the Empire, and offers them the opportunity once again to hurt the Emperor, which they accept. During the flight to Hoshinan Prime, Marin finds herself strangely attracted to Fret, blushing every time she looks at her face. Arriving to the planet, the deserter tells them that their contact is Querus Lar, an Umwadi that has become one of the most rich people in the galaxy. According to Fret, he spent his money on two things: making more money and secretly funding anti-imperial operations, which Seer backs up, having heard of an operation run by him years prior that was successful. Fret says that he is the way that she found the Mantis' crew, as he somehow knew they were going to be on the Haxians' asteroid. Meeting with the space entrepreneur, he tells them that they are targeting an experimental technology called the Shroud. It's apparently so advanced that it hides the user from everything: regular vision, thermals, and can even hide entire ships from any type of sensor. It's currently just a set of schematics, as the creator allegedly died before making it, and Fret confirms that the creator is legit, as she was the one who wanted her out of the Empire in the first place. Querus wants to use it to outfit countless rebel cells to increase the damage they can do to the Empire, minimizing the casualty rate. He tells them that it's currently secured in a prison on Murkana, a planet that Seer seems to have some connection with. She's heard that the Circlet of Suresh, an ancient Jedi artifact, is there, in the hands of a black market dealer. As she realizes that she can recover the circlet and the disc, the crew agrees to the mission, but she doesn't tell them of her secondary objective. Querus tells them to act quick, as their window of opportunity is shrinking, because the Inquisitors are the ones who will be escorting it to the Imperial Research Lab in a short few days. During the flight to Murkana, Marin and Fret share the same cabin, and get intimate in the engine room, as their mutual attraction guides them closer and closer. And during their time together, Fret admits something to her that Marin seems to hide from the rest of the crew. Cal, still suspicious of the deserter, snoops through her limited possessions until his psychometry activates, showing him a vision of her past. He sees a Nikito that Fret calls Ire, and feels that this was her true lover in the past. The Nikito asks her to leave the Empire and flee with her, but Fret denies her before Cal is forced out of the vision. Confused by what he saw, and not quite knowing Marin's and Fret's relationship, he chooses not to say anything about it. Once everyone reunites in the living room, they set their plan. They will use Fret's codes to enter the prison during the changing of the guards. Arriving to the planet, Seer and Marin scout the prison, but the Jedi takes them to a dealership instead. She trades her first instrument, a rare find on the planet, for the Circlet of Suresh and returns to the Mantis. Cal is confused why she has it, as it kinda put them in danger, but they put it aside as they head to the prison. They enter easily, but Seer realizes that something is wrong. The codes were changed this morning, meaning that Fret's codes shouldn't have worked. Cal confronts her, and she admits that she never truly left the Empire, but Marin begs Cal to let her explain. She goes on to say that she wants to escape the Empire, but is working from the inside to try and help recover the Shroud for Karis, and is still lying to the Empire about where she is. Deciding to trust her for now, they continue through the prison, as Cal and Marin trust her even less now, but still allow her to follow. They free the inmates, creating a distraction, allowing them to make it to the cell holding the Shroud schematics. Arriving at the cell, they find the disc, but it's actually a person, a Nikito that Cal and Fret both recognize as Irei, the Kirishi's former lover, just as Seer radios that the Inquisitors have arrived. As Fret and Irei reunite, Marin realizes what's happening and starts to get mad, jealous, believing she has been led on, as Fret begins to focus her attention on her ex-lover. Cal tells the creator of the Shroud that they will protect her from the Empire and begins escorting her through the prison. Marin's abilities come back in full force, sparked by her anger of the situation, prompting Cal to ask if she is fine. She says that she's good, but when they turn around, the two lovers have disappeared, off to the prison. Forced to fight the countless purge troopers, Marin uses her powers to a terrifying degree, worrying Cal, but he sends her back to the ship to help get them ready for a quick escape. As she leaves, the Inquisitor known as the Fifth Brother arrives and begins his assault on Cal. The Jedi counters his clumsy but powerful attacks by fighting smart, focusing on defense while wearing down the Inquisitor with light blows. As the duel continues, Cal falls for a feint and ends up on his back, with a red lightsaber to his neck. Hoping to give his family enough time to flee, he distracts the Inquisitor, until Seer attacks him from behind. She protects Cal, purely using the power of the light side, and gains the upper hand on the brother, and realizes she may be able to turn him back to the light, just as she did with Trilla before Vader killed her. Back aboard the Mantis, Grease and Marin are readying themselves to try and find their Jedi, when Fret and Irei arrive, yelling for a medbay. Irei had taken several shots to the body and was just barely clinging on to life as they bring her aboard. Marin uses her Nightsister magics for healing, something she has never done before, despite her confusions of her feelings for Fret. With Marin occupied healing, Grease heads out for the rest of the crew, tracking their locations through the prison. He finds them, with Cal unconscious and Seer reasoning with the Inquisitor, holding him at blade point, trying to turn him to the light. Grease's arrival distracts her for a split second, but the Fifth Brother uses it to steal her lightsaber and jump at Cal, looking to finish him. Grease jumps between the two of them and manages to save Cal, at the cost of one of his forearms, slicing his top right appendage just above the elbow. As Seer watches his arm fall off, she taps back into the dark side and traps the Inquisitor in a cage of metal and the Force. Together with the newly awakened Cal, they drag him back to the ship, and Fret manages to take off, putting distance between them and the Inquisitor. After stabilizing Grease, everybody meets in the cabin once again to figure out who their new passenger is and what exactly happened in the prison. Irei introduces herself and explains that she created the Shroud to hide her and Fret when they left the Empire, but Fret stayed behind, hoping to cause change from within. Irei was captured by the Empire, but was pronounced dead publicly, distressing Fret and leading her to believe she was dead. She let go of her beliefs in the Empire and tracked down the schematics of the Shroud, hoping to have one last piece of her former lover to hold on to and keep from anybody's hands. As Grease reveals that Seer tried to save the Inquisitor, which caused the loss of his arm, emotions flare from everybody, for different reasons, and they decide to land on a safe world nearby. Landing on Zamara, where the Empire has no presence, the crew agrees to 48 hours to think on the future, and if they're not back on the ship when the time is up, they're walking away from the mission. As everyone goes their separate ways, groups form to help them solve their problems. Cal and Seer meet up, with Seer apologizing for her actions at the prison. She admits to Cal that she wants to create a Jedi archive to ensure the continuation of the Jedi in the future, and starts with the circlet. Cal agrees with the idea, but doesn't feel the same way, wanting to focus on destroying the Empire exclusively. They agree to help each other's task, as it would be mutually beneficial to the other. At the same time, Marin and Fret discuss their relationship before agreeing to just be friends. At the end of the 48 hours, everybody returns to the Mantis in better moods, including Grease, who remarks that he wants to own a cantina when this is all over. On the journey back to Claris, Grease acts up his arm, wanting them to know that he's okay, but at the same time, feel bad for him. Irei reveals that the Shroud isn't actually possible to make, as it requires a lot of mercanite, an extremely rare metal, as well as the technology being extremely experimental. They agree that Karis can't get his hands on it, so they create a fake prototype to convince him that it's not possible to use. As they enter the orbit of Hoshnian Prime, they notice an abnormal amount of Haxion brood ships around the city, which they know isn't a coincidence. Entering Querris's office, they show off the supposed failed prototype of the shroud, but he says that it's no problem, and says that Iray will be staying with him to work out the bugs. He whips out the noisy cricket gun from Men in Black, Cal remarking that it's the smallest gun he's ever seen, before it blows Fret across the room. At the same time, Haxian Brood bounty hunters storm the room, but Merrin uses her newfound flame to deal with them, quickly and brutally. Querris admits that he's planning on joining the Empire by handing the Shroud plans to the Empire and using his control of the Mercanite mines to make an insane profit. Cal manages to record his admission, and if the billionaire manages to survive the ordeal, they were to release it to all the rebel cells he's funding, warning them of his betrayal. As they battle the hunters, they are suddenly greeted by the fifth brother once again, who instantly kills Querris, who attacked him, not knowing who he was. Cal and Merrin fend off the Inquisitor, while Iray rewires the prototype shroud into an IED, and when she's finished, she hands it to Cal, who whips it at the Inquisitor, and it explodes, seemingly killing him. Merrin was too close to the explosion and was nearly killed by it, but they managed to revive her, with no side effects. Fret also reveals herself to be alive, the makeshift trooper armor stopping the shot. With the crew's mission finished, they return to Zimara once again. Fret offers Merrin the opportunity to leave the Mantis and travel with them, but she declines, choosing to stay on the Mantis. As the two lovers walk off to the unknown, the crew of the Mantis prepare for what's coming, and as they say, all they could ever do is be okay for now, one day at a time. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you made it to this point, I'm honestly pretty impressed because this video ended up being a lot longer than I expected. I'm aware I don't have the greatest voice, flow, or editing, and a pretty shit mic, but thanks for watching anyway. I'm just going to say this about the novel, throw it out there. I agree with the common opinion that they kind of did Merrin dirty, and they didn't really expand on any existing lore. You know, just threw in 2 random Imperials we're never going to see again, probably never in Survivor, never in the 3rd sequel they want to make. Honestly, we're more likely to see the 2 fashion-oriented bounty hunters, or their names Kalena and T1LD4, I think, that were mentioned in like the 3rd or 4th chapter on the asteroid. But anyway, it's an interesting book. I'm not going to say anything about the writing style. I'm no author. Throwing it out there, I'm guessing timeline-wise, it lines up about 3 to 4 years after Fallen Order, and Survivor will take place like a year after, because they didn't split up in the book. They just mentioned wanting to go their individual ways, like Seer with the archives, and Grease with his cantina, and then Merrin and the Stormtrooper. I don't know what the fuck happened there. Anyway, super excited about Survivor. Looking at all the marketing, got me hyped. When it comes out, you can trust I'll have a video on it, ASAP. And a video kind of the same as this, but with Survivor. But I'll cut it up to be a lot fucking shorter than this video, because this is way too goddamn long. Anywho, the next video is going to be on Assassin's Creed Origins, and I'm trying to start a setup where I, like, do the entire timeline of Assassin's Creed. But, you know, I'm going to milk the shit out of it by making every individual game, then the big timeline video. So if you're interested in all that, and you had a good time here, like and subscribe and all that stuff. And with that out of the way, check out my other videos. I think they're on Evil West and Uncharted 4. And stay tuned for the upcoming stuff. You know, have a good day.